That was just our quick little cue. We're just a minute away here from getting the show started. So Carol Burnett, got anything else to say? Now's the time.
I thought that was the, oh, ladies, be quiet.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Not quite though.
Yeah, I actually MASH is on a lot now too. That's my husband watches that all the time when he's working and he's just got it on in the background.
Another show. You know, I think it would be fun to like, what's your favorite character at some point discussion for any of those shows because they're so iconic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my clock says 1 o'clock.
Well, I tell you what, God darn it, then we shall begin. First and foremost, our next webinar will just include characters from MASH and the Carol Burnett Show. So sure to tune in to Lisa and Margie continuing their conversation on all the wonderful shows that they grew up watching. No, but more importantly, thank you so much and welcome to today's webinar. We have two really great panelists that are eager to share some of their best research and strategy tips in order to help you continue to plan and grow your business. I'm Will Jurgensen, the Director of Client Experience at Keystone Click and your facilitator for today's panel discussion. We're going to take a quick moment to introduce our panelists, go through a handful of research and strategy related questions, and then at the very end, we are going to open up the questions to the audience and attendants. So if you have anything as you're listening to our panelists talk today, please jot it down, put it into the chat. You can send either a group message or a private message, whatever is most convenient, and we will get to those questions here during the Q&A feature at the very end. So without any further ado, let us meet Lisa Raybill. Meet the Rebel of Rebel Girl Marketing. As the founder, speaker, and chief storyteller, Lisa uses her 28 plus years of experience to help business owners who know they need marketing strategies, yet they have no idea where to start. You will often hear her say, everything in marketing, from how you answer your phone to your final invoice to a customer, it is all marketing. Lisa cuts through the noise of what can be done to promote her clients' business and breaks it down to what makes sense, creating strategies that are simple and relatable to their target audiences. There certainly are benefits to a hashtag rebel mindset. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
And next, Margie Hayworth. Margie's 30-year marketing journey started with research. Primary research for news and commercial organizations, hoping to understand the how and why people make their decisions. She has led studies ranging from the value of a duck covered by spilled oil to quantitative viewer reaction to pilot TV shows, while also to gathering over 100,000 responses in a single day. Her passion is turning the data of research into actionable business decisions that are based on that data. That foundation has led her to be a curious, analytical change agent who helps organizations synthesize scattered information into powerful strategies to communicate their value to prospective customers. Essentially, Margie is a professional nudger who gets stuff done. Margie, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, well, glad to be here.
Awesome. So I tell you what, as we discussed briefly, we have some questions for our panelists. We're going to finalize kind of the Q&A portion here with the question to the two of them and then open it up. So without any further ado, Margie, I will start with you.
Okay.
And we're going to begin on the topic of research. You know, we harp a lot about research, and a lot of businesses say, and I'm sure you've heard it very often, hey, I already know my market. You know, why do I need to bother with research? So can you kind of get us started today by just giving us a little bit of an explanation on your response to this statement? Why do I need to bother with research?
Sure can, Will. I'm going to start with a little bit of an anecdote here. To walk into a bar, everyone really notices the hot blonde. That blonde's name is strategy. The nerdy wingman, that one's name is research. And knowing research is how you avoid mistakes, choose the right strategy. I have met exactly one CEO who had all or most of her assumptions verified by research. Okay, realistically, most of them were answered, but there were still nuggets of good information about how to talk to our audiences that research revealed. Very important things. We know that the world has changed so much in the past 2 years, and it's not surprising that buying process has changed dramatically too. Understanding your particular audience, where they learn, where they spend their time, what they want, how they make their decisions, all of those things can be a game changer for your business. Can you really rely on just guesses is the question I would have. Throwing spaghetti at the wall is fun, but if none of it sticks, where do you go from there? Research is the thing that helps you understand and avoid making those mistakes. It answers the questions and feeds into that strategy discussion and helps you know where to go.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, no, that is wonderful and completely agree, right? It's about taking that time. So Lisa, you put a lot of emphasis on the strategy, and we're going to continue the back and forth from research and strategy throughout our conversation. But before you kind of give us even the rundown on how you begin the strategy process with your clients, I think it's actually important to kind of get a good understanding of who inside of these organizations should even participate in the strategy and research, predominantly from a marketing perspective, and how does that change depending on the size of organizations as well?
Yeah, strategy is something that's all encompassing for your entire organization. So if you're a larger company and you have department heads or, managers, I would invite all of them. So if you think about it, you have human resources, operations, finance, sales is separate from marketing a lot of times in those organizations, and every one of them has something to say about the strategy. HR, they're trying to find people, so there's a marketing strategy surrounded by the hiring process. As far as the sales is concerned, they want to make sure that what you're talking about is relevant to people they're talking to. I've talked to a lot of companies who they have somebody doing their marketing, but have never actually been out in the street helping the salespeople, or at least talking with the salespeople as to what is the client asking for. It might sound good and it might look good, but if it's not relatable, marketing is going to be a waste of your time and money. So making sure your sales is there as well. Operations, the reason I say that is because the operations, they're the heart of what actually gets done once a sale happens. And so you want to make sure that they're in there as well. So there's a reason to have the department heads in there. Do they have to be there through the entire strategy session? Not always. Just make a really good judgment call on that. But I would say that the strategy has to do with everything that within your organization. If you're a smaller organization, I have a client in Ohio that was a manufacturing company. And what they did is I had him invite his manufacturing heads, shift heads into, because it was 3 shifts, into the marketing strategy. And he found out some amazing things. Because as a manufacturer, these people are touching the product every single day. You don't think that they have an idea of what might happen out, like how to sell it, or talk about the different aspects of what's so great about the product. So it's important to invite not everyone. A small company, invite everybody, but in a larger company, definitely invite all the heads of the different departments or shift managers.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, right? People that have the knowledge are going to be helpful when it comes to actually marketing it as well. So let's take that then a step further, Lisa, and actually talk a little bit about what sort of topics and subjects, ultimately need to be discussed during a marketing strategy session.
Yeah. So one of the things that needs to happen before you start a marketing strategy is making sure that your business strategies and goals are aligned and are written down and you have it going forward, because your marketing strategy should match your business strategies. If you want to add a location, or if you want to increase the sales, or if you want to increase the number of people, those all involve sales and HR and stuff. And so you want to make sure that your business goals align with it. I have had too many people that I know of that's oh, I want to grow by X percent, 25, 30%, but they don't match it with the hiring process and all that. I have a client right now who they grew too quickly. They have a lot of business, but nobody to fulfill the business, and they're running their people ragged. Traveling all across the United States. And so you have to have your business goals aligned with your marketing goals. The other thing I would say is making sure you understand who your ideal client is. Now, I'm going to say the ideal client is actually 3 different categories. You have your clients, the people who actually pay your paychecks, right? To give you the money. Your internal clients are your team members. And then you have influencers. A lot of people don't really realize that there's a marketing strategy just with the influencers. Because what happens is that the people who actually write the check don't always make the decision to buy. And so you want to make sure that the influencers are included in your marketing strategy. And then the client experience is always very important to talk about that. What is it like from before they even know you exist until you're setting up a renewal contract? Everything in between their needs is part of your marketing strategy. So you want to really make sure that the client experience is discussed. A couple more things you could talk about is how often you want to update it based on the industry that you're in, but also how often, and also talk about what the client wants to hear, which is why the salespeople are very important to include in your marketing strategy.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And this kind of is going to lead right into my follow-up question with Margie. And, I think that there isn't necessarily a one size fit all, right, when it comes to research and strategy and how the two of them really ultimately come together. But, Margie, as we're listening to Lisa and as she's, given us the great information in conducting these strategy sessions, can you explain maybe from your experience how the research then feeds in to some of these strategy sessions that Lisa is ultimately discussing with us?
Oh, absolutely. As I can't agree more with how Lisa started, which is that both research and strategy start with your goals, understanding what they're going to be, both your overall business goals and how your marketing goals support them. I think Lisa made that really clear in her couple of anecdotes. And we could go all day on that, not alone the Carol Burnett show. So ask yourself and your team to start, whether that's in the strategy session or before it, what is it you want to achieve? And your research questions will naturally flow from that beginning. Lisa sort of touched on this a little bit, but many companies build strategies around meeting their customers or influencers or their target audiences where they are in their journey. There's a lot of literature out there that talks about the customer journey, but people, and it's not a linear thing, people need to start with some kind of awareness, for instance, that they have a problem or that your company could solve their problem. So a good example might be, let's say one of your goals is to create more awareness for your organization or your product. That I hear that kind of goal a lot. You need to ask yourself certain questions. And this is where we go into the research aspect of it. How and where does my specific target audience live? Where do they learn? Where do they spend their time? To Lisa's point, who are the influencers in their lives? Who's whispering in their ear about the kinds of decisions they might want to make or where those solutions are? Do people find those things out by searching on the internet? Is it through word of mouth, their associations, trade organizations? Where are they? What kinds of questions are they asking that you could potentially answer? So, that kind of gets to internet searching, but it also gets to the kinds of things that your target audience wants to hear. So asking yourself those questions gives you some knowledge about who your prospects are, what they're looking for, and how you can help them decide. So that feeds into then your marketing communication strategy. How do you do that? So setting your goals, asking the questions that you need to say, oh, how can I make a difference in that? Feeds into the strategy of, okay, oh, now I know everybody learns on the internet and I need to do a better job with SEO.
100%, right? And now, then let's take that even one step further, right? Because we've talked about, ideal customer and target audience. Another component that we really spend a lot of time on, and I know you have a lot of great insight into, Margie, is, what is it that we should ultimately know about our competitors while we're building out our strategy?
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is where a lot of companies depend on their sales force to tell them these things. And that's why it's really important, as Lisa has mentioned, to have the sales force as part of the strategy discussions. But I would say it may sound kind of funny, but the first thing you need to know about your competitive marketplace is who your competitors actually are. You may be able to name a couple because your sales force has run into them in the bidding process, or you've also seen their, their website, or you run into them in a trade show and hey, they're the booth across from you. Oh boy. But I would bet donuts to dollars that there are competitors you don't know. With how much online selling is booming right now, you can find out that companies as big as Amazon are your competitors. They're doing a lot of B2B now. So it's amazing. You have to do some research into that. Once you know who your competitors are, it's really helpful to answer a couple more questions. Who is their target audience? Who are they trying to sell to? You can tell through their communication. Who are they trying to sell to, and how much does that overlap with who your customers are? So, they could be a competitor in this tiny piece, but not on your big piece. What are their key differentiators? What makes them special? What are they saying makes them special? And how does that compare to you? Where are they talking to their prospects? Are they online? Are they blogging? Are they, doing a whole lot of social media? Understanding where they are and where they aren't are both challenges and opportunities for you. Knowing these key pieces of information can help you build that plan or strategy to deal with that competitive environment.
So it sounds.
Can I add
to
something?
me, oh my gosh,
So,
please, absolutely.
So depending upon your industry, a competitor could actually be somebody internal at that organization. So they could be like wanting to do it in-house. And so it's not just the external competition, it's also possibly the internal competition, like, oh, I can do that ourselves, and figure out how to combat that with the marketing of like, let me take this off your plate. So I completely agree with everything you said, but that internal competition sometimes happens depending upon the industry.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, very interesting. And again, just high level, it sounds to me like, hey, it might be a good idea to go, whether it's online, whether it's a search engine or social media or whatever, and kind of put yourself in your client's shoes a little bit and see what information is out there right now, like kind of just as maybe a good starting point, if you will.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Very good. That is incredible. Really great insight. And, I want to kind of now move back, Lisa, to kind of the organization view, right? And you spoke just there about, hey, that competition might not just be external, but there are components to internal competition as well. And, as we think of organizations and even people who are joining us here today, there are many, organizations that come from a variety of different marketing backgrounds, right? They have maybe internal marketing teams, someone that's on the payroll that, is there on a daily basis. They also are a number of organizations that outsource to agencies or to individual marketers. But the reality is that this world is ever changing and our marketing strategy is ever changing as well. So, what is your advice for how often organizations, whether big or small, outsourced or internal, should be reviewing their marketing strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's a difference between, when you say review, there's a difference between like evaluating and then changing. So like with it evaluating, that should be consistent. You're evaluating the posts that you have, you're evaluating any kind of marketing strategy that you have out there. So like, trying to find out as much as possible where people come from when it comes to website traffic or new clients or anything like that. How did you hear about us? So there's that part, but the actually changing, I would do that far less often, because marketing is a long game. It's not about, I'm going to make a post and I'm going to be a millionaire, right? It's about the long game of know, like, trust. We all play that game in marketing. So it's consistency plus content and time equals results. And so it's changing it, it's not doing it very often. With that said, I would say annually minimum is what you want to do, as far as like really evaluating or like changing what happens, like doing the analysis, doing the research, and then finding out if what you did worked. So that annually, that would be a good, again, it's a long game. However, if you're a seasonal industry, let's say you're an outdoor season or indoor, winter or summer season kind of an industry, I would do it seasonally. So what did you do over the summer that worked, that didn't work? Because when you're seasonal industry and people aren't coming to you because you're a winter sports place, in the summer, it's all about brand awareness, making sure that they remember you when the snow starts to fly, or vice versa. When the snow starts to melt and they want to get outside and play baseball, where are they going to go? It's all of those kinds of evaluations. So again, it's going to be based on industry, but again, annual would be the minimum, and then seasonal I would do after every season.
That makes sense. Margie, anything you would add?
No, I very much agree with the long game thinking. It's really easy to see a marketing campaign not going the way you want it and to jump in and change it too quickly and not let it play out and see where it goes. Everything now in the world of digital marketing takes a little time for you to start seeing the benefit of. So I agree wholeheartedly with the thought of you should be on your measures regularly, but actually changing them only when they've had a little bit of time to play out. So
yeah, it's like the stock market, right? You're not going to jump just because it goes up and down a day. You want to, it's the long game, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And that absolutely makes a lot of sense. And it kind of gets me thinking then, right? I mean, what, and you, Lisa, we began that question focusing, on organizations and whether they're internal or they outsource or external. And, for us, as marketers that help our clients, they come to us at various points, right? And they come to us at whether various pain points and various difficulties, or they just, they actually, sometimes it's a good thing because they've grown too much and they can't get there. What insight could you provide, for owners or lead heads or whatever it might be to ultimately begin to understand when it might be time to actually ask for outside help, inside of their marketing efforts?
Yeah, that's a great question, because you're right. They come to me at all different levels. They're either like, oh my gosh, help me fix this dam that's blowing up, or it could be, I just have no idea where to start. So they're any point in the journey. I'm going to go with a business owner knows when something's missing, or knows that they have a gut check and they're like, there's just something I know that I'm not thinking of, or there's just something I know that we could be doing better that we're just not thinking of. And that's a really good, having that gut check is a really good time to just pick up the phone and call a resource and say, am I crazy? Am I thinking this wrong? And I'm going to compare this to kind of like the medical. If you get a bad medical diagnosis, you want a second opinion. And sometimes it's just that second opinion with somebody in the marketing industry to kind of go, yeah, this is the direction, or this is a great direction, but what if we just tweak this? And it really helps, because you can't do marketing in a silo. It's sometimes, and I know you guys will agree with it, sometimes you look at something so long, you miss a bunch of stuff. Like you've been looking, I don't care if it's a graphic design piece or if it's a content written piece. Sometimes you just miss it. You get it in front of somebody else's eyes, they're going to go, did you notice this is off kilter, or like this makes no sense? And it really helps to get that second opinion, to say, okay, yeah, this is the direction that we really want to go.
I want to pile on to that, Lisa, because it's so many times when we're working with companies, what they need is that third person viewpoint. That checkpoint of seeing their business through a different lens than their own can be very, very valuable and freshen up their whole outlook to even what their value propositions are. Because a lot of times you're so familiar with it, you forget that it really matters that you have a left-handed screwdriver.
Yeah. And on top of that, even sometimes you've been in business for so long, you forget to go back and look at the client experience. I have a client right now who wanted me to help them build a marketing campaign. We quickly realized, though, that the client experience had a lot of holes in it. And so we needed to fix the client experience before we wanted to add a campaign on top of that, because the client experience would be bad. If we kept adding clients on top of a broken system, we're just going to get more unhappy clients. And so really, like you said, Margie, like checking in with the client experience is also a really important thing to do. I mean, make yourself your own client. Try to order something from yourself, or call customer service or something along those lines is the best way to do a quick check with that.
Absolutely. Have you filled out your contact form? When was the last time you looked at your own website? Does it
Right.
reflect what you thought your business was about? That's a really great place to start.
Yeah,
And
and
that,
I've actually applied for jobs. Sorry, Will.
oh my gosh,
I've
that's
actually
okay.
applied for
Oh,
jobs
no,
on my
you're
clients'
done.
websites. Yeah, bye, Will. No, I've actually applied for jobs on clients' websites to see what the application is getting, the applicant is getting back. And it's sometimes the language is like, if you fit the bill, we might call you, kind of a messaging. And I'm like, could we maybe change that to be a little bit more like friendly and positive? And they're like, I had no idea, because who goes to apply for a job at their own company? And so it's all of those, especially with applicant tracking systems and
Mhm.
the marketing automation. Sometimes you set it and forget it, and then you don't realize that it's something that really needs maybe some tweaking, especially like you guys were saying before, that everything's changed over the past 2 years. So like just go back and be your own client and your own applicant.
Yep, for sure.
That makes total sense. I do want to just mention briefly when they, asked me originally if I wanted this job, that they said I was the only one with interruption capabilities, but clearly that is not the case. So that's okay. We'll work on the contract for our next panel discussion. I do want to, I have one last question here, and I'm going to address it to both of you. And I would love to hear, your insights and inputs, again, piggybacking off of one another. Now, if you do have a question for those attending today's webinar, it would be a great opportunity for you to submit that in the chat or in the Q&A portion. But Margie, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
And it's very simple, I think. I don't know. But can you, each of you, share, just maybe your favorite aspect of marketing, research, and strategy?
Okay.
And I know how much you love favorite questions.
I know. I'm like, okay, favorite. It's not like I can have a favorite child. I like both research and strategy. Um, the first thing that comes to mind is that I get excited by research and strategy because of its truly transformative possibilities for our company. When you take the time to build that strong foundation, it helps you make so many of those small day-to-day decisions that you might have been angsting about so much easier, so that you've researched it, it's true to the best of your abilities, you've created a strategy around that makes those decisions so much easier. The other little thing, my favorite part, I'm a data nerd. That's how I started out my business. So I love taking that jumble of data and making it information that can help make actionable decisions. So that's like, okay, my favorite little nugget of it.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Lisa?
I am not a data nerd. I always say I do marketing, not math. So my favorite thing about, and I focus mostly on strategy, is I love helping my clients kind of like when the light bulb goes up. Oh, it doesn't have to be this complicated that I've been reading about in all these million articles. Or we talk about like once we like truly identify who the client is, and they can start letting go of the clients that maybe don't serve them as well. It's those, and they can they repeat the clients that serve them well. I love seeing almost like the pressure or the anxiety being released, because they're like, I get it now. Now I see the direction that I want to go. Now I see where I can go forward. And they're less apprehensive about writing a blog or putting out a social post, because they understand how the client thinks and the message that's relevant. And so for me, it's my favorite part is seeing the business owners just really enjoy the marketing aspect of their business, where before it was like paying taxes.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, first and foremost, thank you to both so much. I do have actually two final questions here. One's going to be, I'm going to address you, Lisa. Lisa or Margie, please take that time then to put your contact information in the chat. And that will give people a chance. And then Margie, one last question for you, and Lisa, you will do the same. So Lisa, you had mentioned earlier actually about aligning marketing goals and business goals, right? And maybe that's how you can ultimately come up with a marketing budget, if you will. I'm curious, and this question is coming from Spencer, if you could maybe just elaborate on what you mean by, or provide any recommendations on how someone can approach aligning those marketing and business goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So being able to understand your business goals, I always start with, what is the call to action you want people to have? Is it you want your existing clients to grow more in the business that they do, or do you want to find new logos or new clients to add to your business? So like, once you want to understand what the call to action is in that business strategy, then you can work your way back into the marketing strategy to say, okay, if we want to just grow our current clients and do more business with us, that's one different kind of strategy than it is if I need to go get new logos. And so aligning those business goals that way with your marketing strategy is the best way to strategically move forward without spinning your wheels, or like just the whole spaghetti on the wall concept.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, Margie, we're going to finish it out with you here. Then we talk about metrics inside of, marketing constantly, right? And the return on investment and KPIs and whatnot. I'm just curious, specifically to research and strategy, do you have, specific metrics that you're looking at, or, how do we start identifying some of those key metrics, as we're conducting our research and strategy?
Okay. I'm sure it's not going to surprise you for me to say that it starts with your goals. As I started the whole thing with that concept. So when you're when you're putting your strategy into place, that's a research-based strategy, you often have looked at a number of things, and you need to think of how would I tell if I was moving moving this thing forward. So let's say your goal, it's pretty easy when you make more money as your goal, but if your goals are a little more broad, like increase awareness, how do I measure that? You could go out and do primary research and ask people, do you know? And I'm sure we've all gotten those telephone calls in the past where, hey, do you know, that still happens. However, you can find awareness in other ways and measure whether you're aware. If you're on social media, how many impressions have your posts been seen? If you're on YouTube, how many people have watched your video? Even with a number such as how many people are coming to your website, that's a sign of awareness. So you just need to think about, what ways could I measure that achievement? And there usually are them. And then once you have some thoughts about that, refine your goal and make sure it is a SMART goal. So you want to make sure that those measures you choose are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. You don't want to you might not have the budget to go out and do primary research and ask people on the street if they've heard of your company, but you probably can install Google Analytics on your website and see how many people came last month. So it really is, it takes a little bit of thinking to decide, here's my goal, what different ways can I measure it? But I would say you should have a goal related to each aspect of your customer journey. How do people become aware of you? How can you tell if people are considering whether or not you're a good fit? The decision one's easy. Did people buy your stuff? And then I would encourage you to have measures that are related to retention. Do you get to keep those customers again and again? And can you turn those customers into what we like to call apostles or loyalists, people who actually talk about it? Try to have a measure for each aspect of your journey.
Awesome. That is wonderful. Well, thank you again to Lisa and Margie. Margie and Lisa, it sounds to me like, hey, let's first and foremost go look at ourselves in the mirror, get a test of the water if we shall, and then when the time comes and we've reached the conclusion that one of you are probably the proper resource, we have their contact information in the chat as well. So again, thank you so much for attending today's panel discussion. A big thanks to Lisa and Margie for your time and experience and wonderful insight. all of our webinars and webinar mini series can be accessed at keystoneclick.com/webinars. We have another phenomenal series coming up in the next few weeks. So thank you again. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.